While I'm hard at work at the Next Judge Mathis, I still want to provide structured or scripted videos here on the channel intermittently, maybe once a week if I can maintain it. Things from like unboxing my retro PC collection, to videos like the one you're about to watch, where you're going to get a list of some sort, top 5, top 10, all that good stuff. I've been enjoying making these videos quite a lot, and I hope you guys have been enjoying it. So if you have, hit that like button, drop a comment, all that good stuff. But if you miss me playing like Let's Play style games, head over to my Twitch where you can watch me do that, twitch.tv/mathisgames. That's where you're gonna see me do kind of more long form stuff of different games. So with that said, let's just get on to the list, shall we? Yeah, I guess 2020 was an all right year. For games. It was an all right year for games. The pandemic hadn't yet completely effed up development for any of the studios, and we had loads of good stuff coming down the pipeline. VR got its killer app that year in Half-Life Alyx. Animal Crossing was finally summoned after countless rituals. Ghost of Tsushima finally pushed Assassin's Creed forward, and Cyberpunk was birthed, aged, and died in like a month at some point last year too. But that all was 2020. In case you hadn't noticed, 2021 is more than halfway finished, and 2020 is about to be over a year away. Time waits for no one. And also, what is time? And does it exist at all, or is it part of the fabric of space? Is space time? So in honor of reminding ourselves how fleeting life is, let's see what's come out this year that we should be excited about and be playing still. Yeah, it's been a rough one out there. Resident Evil 8, Monster Hunter Rise, the new Ratchet and Clank. Spoilers, I haven't even played the new Ratchet and Clank yet. But honestly, it feels like 2021 has been the year of the frame rate boost for older games on new modern consoles, as well as remakes and remasters so far. Obviously, Demon's Souls got entirely remade. Dark Souls got frame rate boosts on new consoles, along with God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, and a slew of other games, which is great since I'm mainly a PC gamer. It is really nice to see consoles finally catching up and joining the playable frame rate club. So in honor of not just playing the same games we've been playing already again, even if they're shinier and have a better frame rate, I decided to throw together a small list of games that I've loved that all launched in 2021 so far that you may or may not have heard of. All of them are indie games in some type, some smaller scale than some larger scale on this list, but nothing is AAA. And hopefully by the end, you've seen at least something that you haven't tried yet that you want to go play. Or you're angry at me that I didn't mention anything that you didn't know about, and you should be leaving mean comments now below the video if YouTube is to be predictable. Let's begin with something that'll sort of be a running theme throughout the video. It's a game that truly for me came out of nowhere. I'd heard tiny bits about it over the years as it was being developed, tiny whispers amongst others through conventions and the like, but never enough that got me interested to go really seek it out. That was until right before its launch when I got sent a pre-release code and thought, why not? The game scene has been a little dry lately. Oh, Lady D, oh, Mommy Milkers, no. Hey, Dean.
Hi.
Do you always wear glasses? Wildermyth bills itself as a party-based procedural RPG where tactical combat and your story decisions shape the world and, most importantly, your characters, which some would call too much power to put in my hands, but it's not like I'm one to mistreat those I care about or anything.
Your story is mine to tell, Daniel.
The combat itself is serviceable and fun, especially the way its magic system works, where you essentially tie yourself to the aura of an item somewhere on the combat grid and are granted abilities depending on the item you chose and your class. For example, if I infused myself with a torch in the room, I'd have the option to rip the flame from its location and move it across the map over an enemy, ideally lighting them on fire. But if I was an elementalist wizard, a specialist option that you can choose, I'd be able to hurl fireballs or rain down boiling water on the enemies, each one doing extra damage or adding a secondary long-standing damage form like fire or burning. Each element has something you can do like this as well, tying yourselves to rocks or wind. It's really intuitive and a lot of fun. The rest of the tactics gameplay is your bog standard 2 actions per character affair. You've got your cover, half cover with percentile chances to hit, but it never really reaches the depth of something like an XCOM. And it's not trying to. The real draw is the RPG side of things, where you can play one of 5 multi-chapter stories, each with an end boss, some twists and turns, but most importantly, decisions that you'll need to make along the way. The excitement of D&D is the complete openness, the anything can happen feeling. The story is yours and you build your character's history. Wildermyth replicates this by giving each hero you create a unique personality that'll influence how they interact with party members, NPCs, and the world around them. Relationships will blossom and crumble, all while you save the world over the course of decades. Your heroes will start as young, plucky 20-somethings, and they'll age, have children, eventually retire, or even die prematurely in a battle that you completely fucked up. While each main campaign has a set end boss and main arc, how you get there and the random events that you come across as you play will always be different. Each story will be unique, and in future playthroughs, who knows? You might come across an old hero of legend that once saved the world eons ago that you haven't seen in a long, long time. The world has been nearly entirely destroyed, sucked into a voidless nothing as the people in this world, including yourself, slowly forget what life was like prior to this nothingness. And a small piece of land that seems to be safe from disappearing and being forgotten by everybody is the only thing you have left. A world so consumed by this void that even the villains perpetrating the act are unclear as to why, how, or even if it's their idea in the first place, forgetting along with the rest of the world. Yeah, that's a hell of a plot hook, all told with chunky 8-bit sounds and highly detailed pixel art that's gorgeous to look at. Loop Hero sports a unique, engaging tale to couple with its arguably even more unique gameplay. At its heart, Loop Hero is a puzzle game. You're never directly in control of combat, in fact it's all automated. Loop Hero is all about the stats and the number crunch. Each run you're given a blank map with a set path. Your chosen hero will then begin to automatically follow that set path, doing very little and murdering basic slimes and monsters along the way. As you loop around the path, more dangers pop up, but more importantly you get to begin to build out that voided map. As you fight, your character gains cards representing map tiles that once existed in the void. As I said, all fights are automatically carried out, comparing base stats like defense and attack with a dash of RNG for dodging attacks and letting the systems work themselves out. The real game begins once you've collected your first cards. At any time, you can pause the looping path and place the cards around the voided tiled map. Each card will do something different. Some will give you supplies, others will spawn different monsters who can drop different cards and do different things. What starts as simply placing tiles for extra things to fight quickly escalates into a delicate balance and rapidly changing puzzle as tiles begin to synergize with one another, creating even more difficult enemies to fight or bigger treasures for you to win. Each loop ends with either your death or a boss fight, pushing the story forward and allowing you some permanent progression back home, where the small slice of land I mentioned earlier slowly grows and it turns into a community, giving you bonuses to make the next run that much easier. Loop Hero is the perfect example of more complicated than it looks. Alright, next on the list is a game that looks like Stalker and wants you to think it's Stalker, but actually isn't Stalker. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Chernobylite is unique on this list because it's technically been available to players for a few years in early access and initially was a Kickstarter game, but it's only just been released into its finished 1.0 form this year. On the surface, it looks like a Stalker clone or knockoff of some sort. It takes place in the same irradiated zone, and it's similar to the explosion from Stalker in that the Chernobyl disaster, when it exploded, also destroyed reality, as reality and the world was torn in half in the process. Yeah, that's kind of where the similarities between the two games end though. While Stalker relies on its realistic simulated take on weapons and combat while providing an oppressive simulated living world to exist in, Chernobylite quickly deviates into the world of the weird, dealing with wormholes and monsters and other crazy paranormal happenings. There's no open world per se to explore, but a bunch of open maps that you'll be crawling through, often many times, each filled with large open areas that change depending on the time of day, weather, and choices you make along the way, as well as plenty of buildings to explore, complete with tight corridors and quiet, suspenseful audio cues and music, keeping you on your toes, as the game is not afraid to remind you that it's also kind of a horror game. The gameplay can be broken down into two phases really, the management phase and the mission phase. The management phase takes place at your home base, where you'll slowly acquire more and more NPCs, each with different talents and abilities. You'll need to distribute rations, ensure everyone has a place to sleep, keep electricity running, and more, while also crafting all the upgrades you're going to need just to survive. Where you'll have the run of where to place beds, comfort objects like chairs and tables, as well as different crafting benches to unlock more recipes. And of course, each of those things needs supplies to either build or fuel. That's where phase 2 comes in. After you decided who gets to eat and who doesn't, you need to head out into the zone and scavenge for anything not nailed down to keep you going. You can assign NPCs to other missions, and depending on their health and their gear, they'll have a greater chance of succeeding. You choose which mission you'd like to do, and off you go into one of those open maps. Once the mission's complete, the day ends, and you start the next day back at managing your base. All the while, you'll be forced to make decisions through the game that'll have direct consequences on nearly every aspect of the game, from your small community's health to the state of certain areas on the map. Very quickly, this game has you realize that this isn't going to be easy, and sacrifices are necessary to make progression. While I played, I couldn't shake the feeling of familiarity a little bit, until eventually it dawned on me. This game in many ways is like a game I loved from a few years back, This War of Mine, except with more first-person action stealth and a heaping dose of survival horror. If you're looking for something that truly lets you feel the weight of your actions while striving just to get to the next day, I promise you, look no further than Chernobylite. This next one, I'm not sure how it slipped by me, but in case it also slipped by a few of you too, I had to throw Death's Door on this list. Made by the same developers as Titan Souls, Death's Door takes a slightly different approach from the boss rush stylings of Titan Souls and puts you in the role of a Reaper, a small crow working for the Death Department in some drab, forgotten piece of the afterlife, and it's up to you to head out and gather the souls of those whose time has come, so that you can make ends meet and pay your bills. In the end, even death can't escape the gaze of capitalism. If that sounds interesting, that's just the setup for the first 5 minutes, and it takes a quick, interesting twist shortly thereafter. In action, the game is actually a pretty standard Zelda Dark Souls action game. You'll be rolling and dodging out of danger from an isometric camera angle because you can't take much punishment before you die, and learning enemy patterns in this game is crucial since there's very little you can do to slow or stop an enemy's attack. The game is also relentless with its enemy gauntlets, so you'll always be on your toes, fighting through waves and waves of enemies to progress. Luckily, the combat is snappy and responsive with a decent number of options to engage from ranged or melee. All the while, of course, you'll be collecting pieces of crystals and so on to increase your health bar, and spending the souls you collect to level up a pretty straightforward skill tree. Since this is the devs of Titan Souls, I expected some crazy boss encounters while I played, and this might be the only real disappointment I have with the game on a surface level, with the majority of the game being enemy gauntlets. It also does its best to break up the combat with some puzzles, but they're all a bit easy, as most boil down to effortlessly moving over to a button that needs to be whacked or a lever that needs to be pulled just to open a door or a bridge. Don't get me wrong though, the game's meat is the combat and the exploration, and both are done fantastically well. Death's Door is a fun adventure game that kept me interested from beginning to end, and you should check it out. Alright, the last one on my list is gonna be the hardest one. I contemplated doing a whole standalone video for it, and hey, maybe I still will, but I had to let people know about this game sooner rather than later. The problem is, well, the gameplay you're watching now probably does a better job at what I want to say than anything I could put on a script. What, you thought I made this up? No, man, I mean, I know I'm a genius, but I gotta like write stuff down every once in a while. Nobody's perfect. Cruelty Squad is, well, I guess it just is, but it is good as it is. At its core, it's a love letter to old school 90s games like Deus Ex or Hitman with a bit of extra fuck you tossed in. You take on the role of some nameless, soulless husk, employed by a corporation to go off and kill its rivals or others within the corposphere that stand in their way. Don't worry, there's paperwork, so it's all legal and all that. It's also an unforgivingly brutal game. 1 or 2 shots takes you down, but the same goes for the enemies. Each level, you're tasked with finding your target or targets and are left up to your own devices on how you want to approach it. The maps are wide open. Do you go in guns blazing, knowing how dangerous it is? Or do you take it slow, scope out the level, find its many, many hidden passageways that may or may not take you to your target? Or if you're unlucky, take you to some unspeakable Cthulhian horror buried beneath the city streets, hinting at something more going on throughout the game that's a bit hard to piece together. No matter how you choose to approach the level, you can likely find some sort of body modification that'll make it easier for you as well. Like my personal favorite, the giant holes in my feet that spew goo to give me a double jump, leaving behind a sticky mess for some unfortunate janitor to clean later. And depending on your personal taste, the visuals might rightfully turn you away. They almost did for me as I saw the overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, thinking maybe it was some huge elaborate troll or joke. This is a truly solid game, made by one dev who clearly has a love and passion for the games of an older era. It has loads of replayability and loads of secrets for you to uncover as you play through. The gameplay is solid, with a few bizarre quirks that I think are put in there on purpose, but if you love games like Deus Ex or Hitman, you have to give Cruelty Squad a try, despite the visual vomit that it's presented as.